All right, so here we are. We're starting Strand 1.3 now. This one talks about how early childhood experiences impact us as an adult. So, I'm going to give you some examples, okay? And we're going to talk through this. So, how a child is taught, guided, provided for, loved, talked to, and treated teaches them how to act. Um, And when I was in preschool, we had this kid that would show up to preschool, and when he would get super angry, he would just start cussing people out, like dropping F bombs, like just literally cussing everybody out. And we were like, what? This is crazy. Like, this kid was 3 years old. Okay. And we started realizing one day, mom came in to pick him up. Mom dropped her phone. She started cussing. And we're like, yep, this is where this kid gets it from. Like, it's not a surprise. Okay. Something to note is that a child can choose to follow these ways and act this way, or they can choose to break the cycle and take a different path. Um, Another thing to know is that what we do to a child can impact them and society forever. So, just like I talked about with Danielle, earlier, that there are lasting impacts. So even though life might get better, there can still be some things that impact us throughout life and that can impact society as well. So I'm going to give you some scenarios of some different people who I'm going to give you their background, and then I'm going to tell you their life and their story, how they turned out. We'll talk about whether they took a different path than their childhood led them down, or if they took the same path. So, first one, I was born in Mississippi to a mother who was 18 and a father who was 20. My grandmother encouraged my love of books by teaching me how to read at the age of 3. I started to read the Bible and soon began speaking at my church. I began kindergarten when I was 5, but I was quickly moved to first grade because I already knew how to read and write. When I was 7, I skipped a grade again. I was thrilled that my parents took me to the library and valued my education. My family attended church regularly, and I found more opportunities for public speaking even at this young age. I was first sexually abused when I was 9 years old. While I was babysitting, my 19-year-old cousin raped me, took me out for ice cream, and told me to keep it a secret. Over the next few years, I was abused by a family friend as well as an uncle. I kept silent about all of it for years. As a teenager, I began to skip school, steal money from my mother, and even run away. When I was just 14, I realized I was pregnant. I hid this from my parents until I was 7 months along. I went into early labor the same day I told my father about the pregnancy. I delivered a baby boy who died within 2 weeks. I became an actor, talk show host, producer, and philanthropist. I co authored 5 books and started a leadership academy for girls in South Africa. I have been featured in Time Magazine's 100 Most Influential People on an impressive 10 occasions. So, in case you haven't guessed it, this one is Oprah Winfrey. She rose from poverty and troubled youth to become the most powerful and influential woman in television, and according to Forbes magazine, she's the world's most highly paid entertainer. So Oprah kind of broke the cycle and took a different path than what she started going down with her childhood. She overcame a lot of the things that she went through. Scenario 2. In my freshman year of college, my sweetheart dumped me, which totally devastated me. I had a hard time recovering from the despair this created in my life. I dropped out of school, but then re-enrolled with a renewed interest in studying psychology that included deviant personality and deviant development. I had a secret passion for searching out magazines and pictures of naked women. I found a new romantic relationship that developed, but a few years later, I won my freshman sweetheart back too. I decided to keep both relationships going without the other knowing what was happening. My first sweetheart became suspicious and broke things off again. Okay, in case, here you go. This was Ted Bundy. Ted Bundy was dumped his freshman year, two-timed girlfriends, and sought women to rape and kill. Okay, so Ted Bundy kind of continued down the same path, right? He didn't break the cycle. Scenario number 3. I grew up in a loving home with 2 parents and 5 siblings. I was passionate about playing music, especially on my harp. I started taking harp lessons when I was 5 and loved performing at weddings, special events, and in concerts. I also loved to run and planned on running for the high school cross country team. At the age of 14, I was taken from my home for 9 months and was treated very poorly. I was physically, socially, and emotionally abused every single day. I didn't know if I would ever make it back home. This was the worst 9 months of my life. I graduated from high school and enrolled at a local college studying music performance. During my time at college, I took a few years off and lived in Paris. While I was there, I met a boy who 3 years later became my husband. We got married and later had 2 kids. Since then, I have written and published a memoir about my experiences I had in my childhood and started my own foundation to empower children and provide trauma support for victims and their families. So, you might have a guess as to who this is. If you guessed Elizabeth Smart, you're right. Okay. This happened in Utah when I was a young child. Okay. She got kidnapped and disappeared for about 9 months, and then later on she escaped. So, she broke the cycle. She overcame her trauma and has now started a foundation for family trauma support for those who have been through similar situations as her. Scenario number 4. I was born in a small town, the fourth of 6 siblings. All but 2 of my siblings died as infants. I was baptized a Catholic. I grew up in a middle class family but moved many times during my childhood because of my father's work. My father and I did not agree on many things, including my desire to pursue an arts degree. My father was ill-tempered and often beat and abused me as a child. When I was 11, my younger brother died of an illness. When I was 14, my father died. When I was 18, my beloved mother died of cancer. I joined the army where I was heralded as a brave soldier, raised to the rank of corporal, and awarded several medals for my service. I entered into politics and joined a political party, eventually rising to party chairman. I gave great speeches and had a knack for public speaking. I wrote a book about my ideology. I ran for election but came in second place. I was put into a prominent position as the second in command. Eventually, I helped to pass a law that would help me seize complete control of the nation into a dictatorship. I built my country into a strong nation, invaded another country, started a war, killed millions of people, and died by suicide to prevent capture. So, if you haven't guessed who this was Adolf Hitler. Okay, so Hitler kind of continued down the same path as his childhood. Okay, I have one more. I grew up with happily married parents, a work from home dad who shared a snack and the sports pages with me every day after school, and a mom who worked with disabled college students. I was very intelligent and I was in a program for gifted students at my elementary. I was a shy child who loved baseball, especially the Boston Red Sox. Like many teenagers, I liked violent video games. I also enjoyed bowling, and I worked behind the scenes for school productions as a sound man. I also worked at a local pizza place for a time. I started getting into trouble with one of my friends when I was in junior high. We broke into a van and stole electronic equipment. My friend and I developed a hatred of school, and on April 20th, 1999, we brought guns and pipe bombs to murder as many students as we could. We killed 13 people and injured 20 before committing suicide. Okay. This is Dylan Klebold. Okay. He is one of the Columbine shooters. Okay. So he he is one that seemed to have a great childhood and then took a turn for the worst. Okay. So breaking the cycle is not always a great thing. Um, but it can be done. So, why do I go through this with you? Okay. Because two twin boys were raised by an alcoholic father. One grew up to be an alcoholic, and when asked what happened, he said, I watched my father. The other grew up and never drank in his life. When he was asked what happened, he said, I watched my father. So truly, it's no matter how you are being raised, no matter what your life at home looks like, you get to decide how you will live your life. You get to decide if you want to be like your parents or not. You are in control of what your future looks like. Childhood experiences impact you, but you still get the choice of how you are going to respond to those experiences. Some individuals can overcome great obstacles in their childhood, while others allow themselves to be victims or to fail due to their early environment. There is no question that we are influenced and molded by our childhood. However, it is how we react to these influences that is vital for our personal success. You can choose to overcome or succumb to negative situations and influences in your own child, like these people that we have discussed. So, I just want you to know that. Um, that's why in our classroom, I have the bulletin board that says you can't choose the cards, the hand you're dealt, but you can choose how to play the cards. So you can't always choose what happens to you, but you can choose how you react and what you do with it. So I just want you to keep that in mind because I feel like it's very important.